Hello and welcome back. Let's look at Tool 8, the LINS Matrix. This is where we do like to get, intermediate, benchmark, and need or there's no deal. And this is the real heart of the tactical plan. We're going to be looking at how to scope and how to score our agenda. Scope means deciding what size it is and what it includes, and scoring is assigning values. So we go back to our old friend, the G.O.B.L.I.N.S planning worksheet. And in the top half, we were about goals, objectives, and best alternatives. Now we are looking at the the bottom half, the second part of this, which is the tactical side. And we're looking at what we'd like to get, the intermediate benchmark, and we need or there's no deal from each one of the variables we select. And here's a blow up of what we'll be calling the LIN matrix. And this is the heart of our tactical plan. The LIN is the ask. There's an old saying in negotiation that you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate for. Well, the LIN is how you decide exactly what to negotiate for. We're going to start by scoping out the deal or the partnership by selecting the right variables. And then in the next video, we're going to learn how to score each variable by a high, medium, or low value, or as we'll be describing it, what we'd like to get, our intermediate benchmark, and what we need, or there's no deal. So the table of contents in this first half, we're going to be looking at scoping. We're going to look at three scenarios or three approaches: the first pass strategy, the relationship, and the structural adjustment. Then in the next video, we'll be looking at scoring and styles. So here you see a LIN matrix that is completed. So you'll see that across the top, we've inserted some pretty generic variables: price, quantity, and terms. This is good if you're making a purchase or making a sale. And then across the left, the y-axis, we have scored this by what we'd like to get, our intermediate benchmark, and what we need or there is no deal. So you can see, because like is higher than need, we are the seller in this. Quantity is what you would like to sell, and the terms are what you would like to get. So you would like from him a high price, a high quantity, and favorable terms. He is going to have a LIN matrix that looks pretty much the inverse. So we start, our first step is to scope. And scoping is when we decide on what goes across the top. We decide on our variables. So we're going to use the selection of our variables to determine how big the deal is and what the deal includes and the shape of the deal. So you decide here on what you're asking for and what you want to discuss in terms of this deal. Time, quantity, and value are the generic examples, but I want you to include everything that you care about. In the process of figuring out what your strategic goals are, you may have determined that a relationship is key. Now, I like it when people include relationship variables in their negotiating agenda if the relationship is going to be absolutely key to their future success. I'm just crazy that way. No one ever includes relationship type variables, and so let's learn what a couple of those are. So here you are forming some sort of, let's say, a partnership with someone overseas who's going to represent your brand or represent your interests in another country. So you're going to be concerned about some measure of cash, commission or service charge or fees or prices. And you're also going to be concerned with quantity. If it's stuff, it's going to be measured in kilos or tons. If it's service, it's probably going to be measured in budget or in years or in projects. Terms are this is starting to get a little bit relationship-y, because now you can start to put in terms that are going to indicate there is a long-term cooperation. But the last two are really are what I use when I am trying to structure a partnership. Meetings can mean one of two things, or two of two things. First, it can mean that you're going to have, and you're going to negotiate about how to have regular staff meetings or C-level meetings or project management meetings, but you're going to start to negotiate how you're going to meet if this is going to be central to your relationship build. For a lot of teams, the only real structure of the relationship is the Monday morning meeting, or the sales meeting, or the Friday afternoon, recount. So meetings is one way. The other thing you can do with meetings, though, is to say that twice a year you're going to get together with your overseas counterparts at a trade show. So you're going to be going to the Singapore trade show or we used to go to the Canton trade show in March or in spring, and then you go to a New York or Las Vegas or London-based trade show in the fall. So you can use meetings to enforce and to reinforce the terms of your relationship, the terms of your partnership. And then power is there. The traditional use of power is to say, I will get 3 board seats, your side will get 2 board seats. You can also say, my side is going to select the president and the CFO or the financial people. Yours will do the sales and the production teams or something like that. And that's where you decide who does what and who gets hired for what. So here we see a market entry partnership, profit split, sales target, department head starts to enforce the partnership idea, trade shows and meetings, we talked about that last time, and a training budget. In a lot of places where you do business, training is going to be like currency, where they really want training, they want training from you, and they want training supervised by you, or paid for by you, that's going to bring up their skill level. And you need to, if this is going to be part of your life, you need to acknowledge it, and B, you want to get out in front of this. You want to ideally control the training curriculum, the training material, so you know what's key and you know how your new employees or your new colleagues are being assessed. Here we have a one-off sale, but even in a one-off sale, where ordinarily you just say it's cash, you can break it down here. I broke it down to base price and the level of a price break, which would be a quantity, delivery, who's paying and how fast, executing on the deal, and how fast are you paying for the deal. So when it comes to scoping, get everything out there. You want just about everything represented on your on your list of variables. Don't assume you can ask for more or change things up later. This is the time. You might have a great relationship. You might be able to change things later, but you may be fighting the idea of changing things later. This may not favor you. So you want the ability to negotiate a complete deal and then try to enforce the terms of that deal later. So there are 3 ways to add to your list of variables. First is your first pass strategy. And this is what you came up with when you did the top half of the chart. This doesn't even include the counterparty. These are just your values and your priorities. The second thing is relationships. We talked about this a little bit before. If relationship is part of your strategy, if you need this person or these people across the table to help you with sales, with marketing, with operations, with manufacturing, if you plan on talking to them again and again, then you need to make relationship part of your agenda. And the 3 variables you can use are structure of the team or organization. Here, choosing department heads, who hires, who manages, and who fires. And this is organizational chart stuff. The second one is related to this, and this is power. This is usually board power or budget authority or authority to do specific things. So who decides on key hires, who decides on key fires, and who controls assets. And finally, budget. Budget is a great way of encouraging and reinforcing relationships, especially when you're, if you are having trouble deciding how to say, I want to train the team so that the quality of their work is higher. You can start talking about training budgets, visits, having them come and work with your team, having someone from your team come and work with them, retreats, events, anything that you see as characterizing this relationship, especially if you're providing the know-how, you might want to include that in budget or in power. And finally, we will use scoping, we will use the choice of variables to bridge gaps between our 2 teams in terms of values, judgment, priorities, capabilities. When there are cultural or practical gaps in your approaches, you can address them with variables. We're going to call this later in the course structural adjustments. What we want is a self-reinforcing team, a self-reinforcing process of meeting our goals. And a lot of times you're going to have to pay for that. So structural adjustments may include penalties or rewards / penalties for meeting deadlines, for meeting quality goals, for meeting sales goals. You also might be playing with the compensation rules or compensating them for certain behaviors. You don't get what you deserve, you only get what you ask for, but you have to make sure that you articulate it in a way that makes your win self-reinforcing. Thanks very much. That was part 1 of the LIN Matrix tool instruction. In the second half, we will look at the scoring process. We